On March 16th, 2021, a 21-year-old man went on a shooting spree at 3 Asian-owned spas in the Atlanta, Georgia area, killing 8 people, 6 of whom were Asian women, and injuring another person. When he was apprehended later that day, he told the police that he had a, quote, sex addiction, and targeted the businesses in order to, quote, eliminate the temptation. The perpetrator claimed that race was not a factor. However, this tragedy did not occur in a vacuum. Those that choose to believe this murderer are ignoring the intersectional experience of Asian women in America. Not only did he associate his sex addiction with Asian-owned businesses, we can't ignore the stereotypes of Asian women that have been around for centuries in America. Now, we know that very few women were in the first wave of Chinese immigrants to America in the mid-19th century. Chinese men were worried about bringing their wives and exposing them to the harsh frontier conditions and racial hostility in America. Foreign worker taxes in America also paired with depressed wages because they were like migrant workers, or made it very difficult for Chinese men to even think about being able to save up enough to bring their families, their wives, over from China or from Japan or anywhere like that, which also contributed to the demand for sex work, I guess. Whites also viewed America as a white man's country and perceived the entry of Chinese women and families as a threat to their racial homogeneity. Federal immigration policies were enacted to bar Chinese women from entering the country. Men outnumbered women by a large margin, and it didn't take long for Chinese gangs to take advantage of that. These gangs set up brothels in Chinatowns and anywhere else that Chinese men gathered. They set up sophisticated sex trafficking rings to get these women into the country, often kidnapping or tricking women and their families. In the course material, we read about a Chinese woman who was tricked into coming into America with a man she thought was her husband and was forced to work as a prostitute. Many of these women used drugs in order to psychologically escape from the daily horrors. Disease was a constant threat, and women were sometimes beaten to death by customers or owners. The Hip Li Tong gang was estimated to have trafficked 6,000 Chinese women between 1852 and 1873, or about 87% of the total number of Chinese women who arrived during that time. In 1870 manuscripts, 61% of the 3,536 Chinese women in California listed their occupation as prostitute. Instead of seeing these women as the victims of sexual exploitation that they were, the majority of white folks saw this as a reason to believe that Asian women were hypersexual, evil, unchristian, threats to American values and family structure, and dangerous by contributing to interracial relations, the main cause for the spread of STIs. I also need to point out there were also white women who were engaged in sex work during this time. It wasn't only Asian women, but Asian or Chinese women specifically were scapegoated as the reason why venereal diseases were spreading. They were seen as dirty because of that. And they were moral, what's the word? A moral contagion to be dealt with. In 1875, the Page Act was signed into federal law with the intention to, quote, end the danger of cheap Chinese labor and immoral Chinese women. While the wording of the law technically barred immigrants considered undesirable, Asian forced laborers, Asian women who would engage in prostitution, and anyone who was considered a convict in their own country, it was heavily enforced as a way to keep Asian women from coming into the country, regardless of their sex work status. According to Time magazine, Asian women were already superficially profiled as prostitutes and denigrated as being unclean. This is the first instance of the structural linking of Asian women with promiscuity.
She's first-class geisha girl. She knows her business. Good night, boss.
We can't talk about the objectification and fetishization of Asian women without talking about depictions in Western media. Whether it's Kim from Miss Saigon or Princess Ling Moy from Daughter of the Dragon, the portrayals of Asian women are steeped in Orientalism, or the racist, sexualized, and commodified way that the West discusses Eastern cultures, often through an imperialist lens. Eastern cultures are depicted as highly exotic, and depictions of Asian women in film and literature hypersexual. This also came on the heels of the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, which banned immigration of Chinese laborers until it was repealed in 1943. At the same time, pieces like The Good Woman of Szechuan in the 1880s and Madame Butterfly in 1904 depicted Asian women as submissive, docile, excessively sexual, and ultimately expendable. This is what is known as the lotus blossom, or China doll, or geisha girl trope. This portrays Asian women on screen as subservient, eager to please objects of desire, but ones which are disposable. Often these women are portrayed as sex workers and need to be rescued by a white man, implying that Asian men were not suitable partners. In both Miss Saigon and Madame Butterfly, the opera, the Asian woman kills herself in order to, especially in Miss Saigon, in order for the woman, the wife, the American wife, to better accept taking in her son. Ultimately, these women are literally expendable in these stories. So something I forgot to mention was that the lotus blossom stereotype could also include elements of like innocence or childlikeness that was apparent in The World of Susie Wong. Also Madame Butterfly. After military occupation in Asian countries and the War Brides Act of 1945, war wife stereotypes fueled the desire for Asian women and painted them as ideal domesticated wives. This trope of Asian women being hypersexual and subservient didn't stop in the early 1900s.
I'm 17 and I'm new here today. The village I come from seems so far away. All of the girls know much more what to say, but I know I have a heart like the sea. A million dreams are in me.
But Jesus, John, who was she?
Hello! How are you getting along with the natives?
Well, it's an age-old problem, sir. It's a question or a struggle to see who's going to lose face.
I understand. East is east and west is west, and there can be no twain. Don't forget, the eyes of Washington are on you, Frisbee.
Oh, I hope not, sir.
We think you're very gravy, baby. Do we make you sleepy?
Well, you make me many things, but sleepy's not one of them.
We give you top secret massage. Yes, top secret massage, baby.
Sorry about that. I swear to God that never happens. Yes, hold on a tick. Okay. Okay, now where were we, babies? Yes. Oh.
I am Mantis.
I never thought she'd be able to do it, with as weak and skinny as she appears to be.
Something you call love, but confess just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all
Hey, baby.
over you.
You got girlfriend, Vietnam? Not just this minute.
Yeah.
Well, baby, me so horny. Me so horny.
You keep lying.
Me love
when
you
ought
long
to be
time.
truthing.
You party?
Yeah, we might party. When you
How much?
$15?
$15 for both of us. No, each you $15. Me love you long time. Me so horny. $15 too beaucoup. $5 each. Me sucky sucky. Me love you too much. $5 is all my mom allows me to spend. Okay, $10 each. What do we get for $10? Everything you want. Everything? Everything.
You keep playing.
Well, old buddy.
Playing.
Feel like spending some of your hard-earned money?
And you keep
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Hello? Hello, P. Hello, P. Hello, Soldier Boy. Hey, Soldier Boy.
Huh?
Hello, Soldier Boy. Me so horny. Me love you long time.
Go away, kid. You're grossing me out.
Hello, P. P. Hello, Sucky, Sucky. Hello, P.
Beat it, kid.
Sucky, Sucky. $5.
Full Metal Jacket not only mocks Vietnamese and later all Asian women in general, it dehumanizes Asian women and reduces them to exotic sexual objects. I would safely assume that every Asian woman has heard this phrase at some point in post-1987. To quote writer and professor Viet Thanh Nguyen, who put it best, it's a terrible phrase that became a racist and sexist way for people to provoke Asian and Asian American women. It was sampled by 2 Live Crew, which probably helped to account for its popularity, which shows that Orientalism is both black and white. Asian women aren't always depicted in the lotus blossom trope, which served the male fantasy, Western male fantasy. They could also be the Dragon Lady. The Dragon Lady represents Asian women as manipulative, hypersexual, mysterious, exotic, diseased, untrustworthy, and the source of crime and violence. If the lotus blossom stereotype views Asian women through the lens of white superiority, that Asian women need these white men to rescue and protect them, then the Dragon Lady stereotype views Asian women through the lens of yellow peril, the existential threat that East and Southeast Asian people posed on the Western world. These cultural perceptions and jokes at the expense of Asian women do have real-world consequences. It shapes how women are viewed and treated in day-to-day life. It dehumanizes us and creates an environment where violence is excusable. We are expected to be okay with fetishized comments about our bodies, even flattered by such comments. 41% to 61% of Asian women report experiencing physical and or sexual violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. These stereotypes and perceptions of us do contribute to our bodies being violated. I want you to listen to some of this news report from 2001.
Seattle Times, Spokane, Washington. On a cold, clear morning last November, 3 Japanese teenagers waiting at a bus stop accepted a ride from a smiling American woman in a maroon Subaru. It was a Saturday, and the young women, students at a local Japanese school, wanted to go downtown. They had been in the U.S. 2 months. There was still a lot to see, and everyone seemed so friendly. They had just missed a bus, and it was a biting 9 degrees outside. The woman in the Subaru charmed them, insisted. The students climbed into the car, and off they went. What happened next is called by Spokane Police Chief Roger Bragdon one of the most despicable crimes he's ever dealt with. The driver picked up 2 men waiting nearby. The students were handcuffed and blindfolded. One woman was driven a short distance and released. The other 2 were brought to a Spokane Valley house where they were raped over 7 hours. The assaults were videotaped and photographed. The students were informed that if they told anybody what happened, the videotapes would be sent to their fathers. The women eventually were dropped off a short distance from the bus stop at the main entrance to their school, the Mukogawa Fort Wright Institute. Bragdon, fearing an international incident, launched an all-out investigation. A week later, 3 locals were charged with multiple counts of kidnapping, rape, and witness intimidation. Lana Vickery, 43, a clerk at an adult novelty store. David Daly, 38, a former carpenter who had been investigated in previous sex offenses. And Edmund Eddie Ball, 40, a leader in a local sadomasochist sex club. One by one, the defendants pleaded guilty. Vickery in March, Ball last week, and Daly Wednesday morning. Much of Spokane has followed the proceedings not only out of prurient interest but also out of fascination that 2 peripheral subcultures would intersect in such a lurid way in their small city. Most townspeople had no clue such a sex club existed at all, and many knew little of the Japanese enclave on Spokane's western outskirts. Cultural differences. Throughout the investigation, this overwhelmingly white, all-American city encountered, and for the most part accommodated, Japanese customs and sensibilities. The rape victims, 18 and 19, are still minors under Japanese law. Their school is owned and operated by Japanese, and its leadership was under no legal obligation, aside from answering routine questions, to cooperate with local police. Bragdon, the police chief, said he acted quickly in part because he feared the school would shut down communication with investigators. And indeed, the school did muzzle faculty members and students, and went to court to prevent the media from releasing any identifying information on the victims. The school also pressured police to play down the sexual aspect of the case. Sex crimes in Japan, compared with the U.S., are relatively rare. The victims of sex crimes are profoundly stigmatized. Many victims do not discuss rapes with family or counselors, much less with police. To be an innocent victim of a sexual assault in Japan is a matter of great personal shame, said Hiroshi Takaoka, executive vice president of Mukogawa. This was why the assailants targeted not just Asians but specifically Japanese, Vickery told prosecutors. The defendants thought the women would be too ashamed to report it.
When people are quick to ignore our race as a factor in the violence that is perpetrated against us, we dismiss centuries of precedent. And we can't ignore our race.